All right, this lesson is on absolute value equations. All right, and our learning target is I can solve absolute value equations. All right, to get our brain working here today, let's take a look at this and see if you can solve this number puzzle. We'll pause here while you take a look at it. All right. Our essential question today is what is absolute value and how do I solve absolute value equations? So the mathematical definition of absolute value is the distance a value is away from zero. And I want you to look at those two questions. We'll pause here and discuss those while you think about those and then afterwards discuss. All right, so a problem that you might see might look like something like this. And how do we go about solving these? And the first thing you want to do is get the absolute value all by itself. And then you're going to create two cases, one positive and one negative. We talked a little bit about why that worked in our discussion. And then we're going to solve each of those cases. And so that means you should have two answers for each of those. All right, so how does this play out? What does this look like? All right, so step one, we're going to isolate the absolute value. And in this case, that's already been done. Nothing outside of the absolute value. So step two, then I can go ahead and create two cases. So I'm going to do that. And then my other case would be the negative version of that. Oops. Okay. Now, we're going to solve each of these cases, and that will give us our two answers. So let's start over here by subtracting 7 from both sides. I get negative 4 is equal to 2k. These cancel out. Divide by 2. K is equal to negative 2. All right, so there's our first one. And now this second one, we're going to do the same method, but we're going to get a different answer over here, as you might suspect. Okay, we get negative 5 is equal to k. All right, here's my one answer, and here's my other. Okay, now let's think about this. Let's pause here and plug back in and see if this really makes sense, and then let's talk about it. Okay, so once again, when we're solving each of these absolute value equations, we want to get the absolute value by itself first. So in this particular case, we've got to get rid of this 3 because it's outside of the absolute value symbol there. So first thing, let's multiply by 3. So we're going to do the opposite, inverse operations. Divide by 3 first. Notice I still have the absolute value as a part of my equation. Okay. Now, once you create your two cases, this is where you'll lose the absolute value. So this will be m plus 8 is equal to 13. And then my other case would be m plus 8 is equal to negative 13. Now I have my two cases, and then I'm going to solve these real quickly. Subtract 8 from both sides, and I get m equals 5. And, oops. Over here, I would have m equals negative 21. And here are my two answers. Okay. All right, so now that we're getting a little bit more familiar with this, I'd like you to try this problem and see how you do. Okay, at this point we want to split into our two cases. And now solve. So subtract 10. And then same thing over here. Here are our two answers. Okay, how'd we do? All right, lastly, here's the problem that I showed you at the beginning. I'm going to see if we can do this now. All right. So, first thing, isolate the variable, or the absolute value symbol. So subtract 8 from both sides. You can see why we spend so much time on solving equations. Okay, and now I need to get rid of that multiply by -12, so we're going to divide by -12. Okay, so I get 2 is equal to the absolute value of k divided by 5. And here's where we're going to create our two cases. So this first one will be 2 is equal to k over 5. And the second one would be -2 is equal to k over 5. And we're going to solve these both the same way, we'll just have different answers. So get the k by itself, I want to multiply by 5, opposite, or inverse operations. So we get k equals 10. And then over here, same thing. I get k equals -10. And these are my two answers. All right. Hopefully that makes some sense. What I'd like you to do now is go ahead and work on the absolute value equation worksheet, and stop in to ask the teacher hours if you need any help. All right. See ya.